Ready.
The Lane Community College Board of Education work session will now be called to order. Celia, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Kevin Alltucker.
Here.
Denise Diamond.
Here.
Austin Fulnagi.
Here.
Lisa Fragola.
Here.
Sophie Gibson.
Here.
Steve Mattel.
Here.
Zach Mulholland.
Here.
Julie Weisman.
Here.
Okay, we will be moving on to the land recognition. The land recognition will be read by Kara Flath.
Hi, I'd like to start our meeting with the acknowledgement that the land we are on is the traditional homelands of the Kalapuya people. The Kalapuya were stewards of this very land for over 14,000 years before their traditional way of life was forever disrupted. We start our meeting with the humility and reverence for the original inhabitants, the Kalapuya.
Okay, next up is agenda adoption. Do I have a motion to adopt the October 22nd board work session agenda?
I move to adopt the agenda.
Second.
Okay, the motion is moved and seconded. All in favor, please raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
And all in favor, please say nay. Sorry if I screwed that.
Sorry, I was confused for half a second. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, and any abstentions? And it passes unanimously. Okay. Equity Lens, please note that the Equity Lens has been provided for the board's reference, is available in the board docs. Do we have any questions or comments to the responses to information requests? Okay, I think I'd sent in a couple yesterday that didn't get responded to, but I can follow up with after the meeting regarding that. Next up is Program Spotlight, LCC Athletics.
You're right, if I just talk out loud instead of into the mic.
You need the mic for.
Yeah.
Use the mic, okay. So I can't use my coach's voice.
It's not,
All right.
it's for the folks.
Yes, I got you. That's awesome. So first of all, thank you for an opportunity here to discuss the Lane Community College Athletic Department. My name is Greg Sheely, Director of Athletics. I've been an employee of Lane Community College since the fall of 1999. Have obviously enjoyed my time here as an employee, as a coach, and also the athletic director since 2009. I was able to provide you some information that isn't too stellar. I apologize. I was alerted of this information kind of last minute. Did the best I could. Some of it will be some information that I presented a couple of years ago, but was with some new board members. I thought that was pertinent. And then we would also give you some new and updated information as well. And then I brought 3 student athletes with me that would like to just kind of give you some thoughts on their behalf, which I think will be good. So first of all, in the packet, I included the remaining home athletic contests through the end of the year. And provided you all with VIP passes. Sophie, as a student, you're already a VIP. You get in free to any home contest. So hopefully we can entice you to come to an event as well. We would love to see you guys there supporting our student athletes anyway, anyhow. I thought that I'd kind of use the similar format that I've used in the past, kind of talking about enrollment, fiscal conditioning, the campus culture, and then highlighting some outstanding athletic department achievements over the last years, decades, whatever you'd like to call it. So starting off, just a quick historical fact, 2016, a board approved enrollment plan, I believe is what it was called, a strategic enrollment plan. We added men's soccer and brought volleyball back into our athletic fold with the intent that would help increase full-time enrollment. And as you can see with the numbers I provided, since 2016, we've averaged almost 185 full-time student athletes throughout the 3 terms. It's not a high, it's not a low. Usually the fall is our largest enrollment. And even in athletics, we have some triculation down where the winter term we have less, and then in spring sometimes we have less. Many reasons why those student athletes don't stay the whole time. Some of them are positive. They've graduated and transferred, moved on. A lot of students nowadays are coming even to Lane Community College with a significant amount of college credits. Oregon has the College Now. Washington has Running Start. A lot of other high academic kids are taking AP, IB, and they're still coming to participate in athletics. So they don't necessarily need a 2 full year experience here to get their transfer degree. So sometimes that will affect that. But as you can see, that was about a 30 percent, not percent, excuse me, a 30% increase from the previous when we didn't add those 2 sports. So before that, I also noted that since the fall of 2019, which is data that I had on hand with me, 85% of all the credits that our student athletes have attempted have been completed or passed. And we're averaging since 2019 a 2.9 GPA overall. I think the completion percentage is more important than the GPA. That's my personal because I want our kids completing. Sometimes there's some courses that are difficult and GPAs don't necessarily reflect that. So I think that's still pretty impressive though. As far as the fiscal responsibility and fiscal conditioning, our student athletes help generate revenue from tuition, fees, and FTE reimbursement. In my board presentation in 2022, board member Mitel asked about some of the numbers that I presented for just tuition. And he wanted to know about, hey, well, what about the costs? And I included with you again the numbers that Kathy Thomas provided in February of 2023 back to you, showing the net gain in revenue that we have, our student athletes have presented. And since that, it's $3,462,545 back to the general fund in the positive with expenses net and everything included. So actually better numbers than I anticipated. So thank you for asking that because we did steer those numbers and you caught me on that. So good job. Also, and again, those were provided by Kathy Thomas. So these are not just our own generated revenue information from our tracking reports. So there's other ways that athletics can contribute to revenue for the college. And one of those is indirectly through friends and or family that come with our student athletes. There's been informal surveys throughout the Northwest that anywhere from 0.5 to 1.1 students attend per student athlete that comes. Usually it's a friend that comes with them. And so if you calculate that, then you're adding some more generated revenue that wouldn't be coming to Lane if we didn't have those student athletes here. So a lot of this revenue generation stuff as student athletes and as athletic directors throughout the Northwest, we're constantly justifying our existence. So that's why this information is shared amongst the athletic directors in the Northwest. Another thing that I wanted to point out, I believe I pointed it out a little bit during my 22 presentation, but our student athletes do receive tuition waivers, but there has been a long assumption that all the student athletes receive tuition waivers. Actually, since 2019, only 44% of all the credits that were attempted by student athletes are waived. So that means 56% of our student athlete attempted credits are still being paid. So that's how we came up with helped generate in revenue numbers. So it's while some student athletes may get the majority of their credits waived, others are getting zero or very little. So it's a combination of when we do have a cap that we're allowed to. And even when we have a cap, we don't always max it out because we have high standards that our student athletes must maintain, not only eligibility, but just regular general rules that you need to maintain as far as being in a privileged athletic program. And so we want to make sure that those student athletes maintain that. And if they don't, then we have the ability to pull back on some of those tuition waivers if they're not holding up their end of the bargain. So that's why sometimes we don't use all of our student athlete tuition waivers. Athletics also contributes through revenue generation with community partnerships. Long-standing partnerships have been with the Eugene Metro Football Club. They rent our outdoor facilities probably 6-7 days a week, about 11 months a year. That contributes back to helping offset costs for athletics. We also contribute back to the college with that. And then we also have partnerships with Tracktown USA. As you know, World Championships were here a few years ago. Through the partnerships that were developed through the athletic department, it also led to other parts of this campus being used with the World Championships, mainly the parking up top, which was a big revenue generator for I think it was big. You guys might not, but I thought it was a pretty good amount of money that was generated from that. They also sponsor the Olympic Trials, U.S. Championships. We are the practice facility for those events, and have been. Oregon Track Club, they have all-comers meets. Last week, I don't know if you saw the middle school donut run cross-country event that was out here. 400 plus middle schoolers were out on our cross-country course. I believe it was a week ago Wednesday, from right here, a week ago yesterday or today. We also have partnerships with the University of Oregon when they host the NCAA track and field and former Pac-12, now Big 12 championships. We are those practice facility sites again, and they use ours. And so the Oregon Scholastic Athletic Association, otherwise known as the OSAA, we have hosted its state cross-country meet for over 50 years here. And we've also previously hosted volleyball championships. All these events are bringing potential student athletes onto this campus, whether it's from 6-year-old soccer players to middle school runners to other events, and they get exposed to our campus through the events that are sponsored through the athletic department. We also have a girls' summer basketball league that is in almost 20 years running now. And anywhere from 28 to 36 teams are participating in that league in the month of June. Again, potential student athletes or just students coming through onto our campus. A lot of times, it's amazing how many former students, parents now come back out here and they're like, oh my gosh, things have changed. And that's really cool because I've been here a long time to hear that. So it's really fun. And then the Bymark Corporation has been an outstanding partner with athletics. They sponsor our scoreboards and have for more than 10 years. So they've been really supportive of us. So again, helps generate revenues. Mostly the Bymark goes directly towards athletics. So how we contribute to our campus's culture, our coaches are able to actively recruit the world right now. We are able to recruit the entire globe, and we do so. We also recruit underrepresented and underserved communities that all contribute to the campus diversity. Currently, we have 9 states represented on our teams and 7 countries. And so a pretty good diversification there. I don't have any numbers that have been updated since 2018, but in 2018, 36% of our student athletes listed their ethnicity as non-white. So again, helping with some campus diversity. We have a student athlete leadership group that contributes back to the community. They've helped out at the Whitaker Community Dinner for years with in-person donations, in-kind, collecting things. We also do cancer awareness events. This Friday is the Dig Pink volleyball match. Basketball does Coaches versus Cancer or Play for K events. We've had student athletes do community visits with local schools, visiting. We've even had our baseball program about 5 years ago had a connection to one of the children's hospitals, and we went into some of the areas and sat down over there, and that was something that we probably should get back to doing. That was really neat. We also annually contribute to Food for Lane County and our own food pantry here when we collect items at games. I also think that we promote institutional pride throughout our community with our athletic programs. I'm sorry I'm talking so fast, but I want to be aware of everyone's time as well, and I appreciate it. So some athletic department successes, which was not part of my previous presentation. Just a little history again. Lane was part of the National Junior College Association until 1984, when they joined the Washington schools to form what is now called the Northwest Athletic Conference, or the NWAC, and that's what we're a part of right now. Since joining that conference, our programs have won 117 league, what they call region titles, and 45 NWAC titles, which is the overall conference titles. If it's not the most NWAC titles, we're right there with Spokane, probably as the premier programs in the Northwest. We have had former Titans compete in Olympic Games. We've had former Titans that have played professional sports. We've had former Titans, many that have gone on to athletic careers at four-year universities, Division I, II, III, NAIA, all throughout the country. Would like to highlight a few. Tom Pappas, who is currently still local, 2003 World Decathlon Champion, three-time Olympian, former Titan, right here, world champion, pretty impressive. Cyrus Hostetler, two-time Javelin Olympian. Keenan Middleton was a third-round draft pick of the Anaheim Angels and is currently with the St. Louis Cardinals. Had Tommy John surgery in the offseason, but hopefully will be ready to go next year. And then this one I love, Kylie O'Connor Harrell is a two-time professional tackle football conference all-star. She played with the Oregon Ravens and is currently with the Boston Renegades. Played in Jerry's World. If you guys know the Cowboys, they have the AT&T Stadium right next door. They have their practice facility, and she was in an all-star game that was in that facility. And then also this year got to play in the Women's Tackle Football Conference Championship, which was held at the Hall of Fame Stadium in Canton, Ohio. So pretty cool to be able to do that. And then lastly, I've made reference to this in some of my board reports, but the last 2 years, our athletic department has excelled department-wide with their accomplishments on the field, on the pitch, in the classroom, and those type of things, better than we ever have. 2003 and 2024, we were ranked 4th in what is called the NADCA Daktronics Cup. NADCA is the National Association of Two-Year College Athletic Association, and sponsored by Daktronics. So when we placed 4th in the States Cup, that is all the community colleges in Oregon, Washington, California. Over 150 community colleges. We placed 4th the last 2 years. And 11th nationally both years. I think last year was the first time that I was able to, since 1984, that all 10 of our programs qualified for postseason play, which is an amazing attribute and accomplishment to our student athletes, to our coaches. And so I really wanted to note that. And then lastly, I would be remiss, I know we have a meeting and a little panel about this, but our baseball team and the field situation, I know it's a touchy subject. It's sensitive, but just to kind of point out, as of today, this current team has not practiced on a baseball field. We have been working diligently, and Kara can back me up on this, trying to find place in this community to get these young men an opportunity to actually get on a field to practice. And as of today, they have not practiced on one, and we have worked hard to find them. So it's not like it's just easy to place these guys anywhere. And they have had to find. Fortunately, our weather has been really well, so we've been able to use our turf facility on the soccer field and share some time and allow them to take some ground balls there, but it's not the same trying to simulate a baseball field. It's just not the same. And they're only able to find off-site hitting facilities 2 days a week, Sunday mornings and Wednesday nights. And that's at Sheldon High School currently, and that's, again, 6 p.m., 8 in the morning on Sunday, just not conducive to a student athlete experience in my opinion. And again, I know that there's a lot going on about this, but I know they would, and I would appreciate your guys' support of finding them an opportunity to get back on campus and experience what it's like to be a true student athlete at Lane Community College. Thank you for your time. I do have a few student athletes that I'd like to let them give a quick opportunity, and then you're more than welcome to ask them some questions if you like. So thank you. Micah, why don't you go first?
Hi. So my name is Michael Wicks, and I was born and raised in Roseburg, Oregon. I chose to come to Lane for primarily the outstanding basketball program. We have a really successful coach and really talented coach. Don't tell him that though. And I right now am currently studying business management, and I'm hoping to transfer to a 4-year university after this year at Lane, and continue my basketball career as well as furthering my education. My student athlete experience here at Lane has been nothing short of amazing. It's so great to be able to walk into our gym and you know, see boys basketball players or track and field athletes, and you know, just kind of you tip your hat to them and acknowledge that we're all Titans and we're in this together, and that's a super special experience. And to have other coaches, you know, acknowledge you and your accomplishments and realize that, you know, this is a community and we're all here for each other. And not only are we Lane students, but we also have that athletic, you know, component and that competitiveness that we can share and that we can build friendships upon. So it's been a really outstanding experience here at Lane, with, you know, all the diversity and all of the different states and regions being represented here, and getting to meet other student athletes who have gone through, you know, different experiences to get to Lane. Obviously, like I only live, you know, usually an hour away, but to come here is like a whole nother world, and to get to share that with people who love, you know, athletics and sports as much as I do is a super special thing. And so you know, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening. My name is Piper Wise Cruz. I am from all over Washington and a little bit of Oregon, but I graduated from high school in Camas, Washington. I chose Lane as kind of almost a last minute thing. I run track and field here, and I run the 800, the 400 hurdles, long and triple jump, which is quite a bit to load onto yourself, but I really do enjoy it because it is my sport. But I was ready my senior year to call it quits with track, and thinking I didn't have the potential to continue on to the college level. And Lane has brought that to me in the biggest and best way possible. I can't tell you how grateful I am that I have all of the equipment I have here that makes every day easier as a JUCO student athlete, and all of the people I've met. I don't know if you know my coach, Kelly Blair. She's an Olympian. We love her. She is the most inspirational woman I've ever met. I was ready to just do these 2 years, but she has encouraged me to continue on and to go into hopefully a 4-year after this and reach for my big goals. And that is all because I came here, and I am so appreciative of it. I'm currently doing a transfer degree here, but I do hope to focus on a major in business and a minor in environmental sciences, as well as practicing or learning some Indigenous studies and wisdom work. I find a deep passion in that, and to go somewhere politically or business-wise with that, I would like to end it there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Noah Salmon, and I'm from Davis, California. If any of you guys know where that is, it's a little college town a little bit east of Sacramento, I believe. And I chose Lane Community College primarily because of basketball, but also because of the physical therapy program we have here. And I'd actually like to highlight the professors here as well, because originally coming to a community college, I didn't necessarily believe that, you know, I'm at a community college. I didn't believe the professors were going to be really amazing, but my mind changed immediately when I got here. On my visit, I got to meet some of them. I got to go into the bookstore. I got to talk to all the faculty here, and everyone was just, compared to the California junior colleges I visited and the other colleges, this just really stood out to me as a great environment and somewhere where I could really thrive. So a couple of shout outs to my favorite teachers. Jose Chavez, probably one of the best teachers I've ever had, and Jeffrey Lands, which is another great professor I have. And more on the athletic side of things, my coach, CJ Edwards, is probably, he really relit the flame like for basketball for me. I love playing for him. I love everything he does with practice. I love the access that I have to the facilities here, the new shooting machine that we got. Love that. I'm on there every single day. And yeah, just overall having gym access 24/7 is just amazing. And another factor why I really love Lane Community College is, I'm from California. This is my second year here, but I remember my first year I was struggling a lot with, being homesick. Like obviously 8 hours isn't across the country or anything, but it really weighed heavily on me to just be away from home. And my coaches, they had a Thanksgiving for people that couldn't go back home. So I went to that. I went to his house. I had a Thanksgiving and I felt right at home. So that's just something that I feel is intangible that I'd just love to see here. And yeah, I'll end my time there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, just want to start by saying thank you to our athletic director and for the student athletes for coming and speaking tonight. Go ahead and open it up for questions and comments. I've got Austin.
Absolutely. Yeah. A comment, then a question. First off, go Titans. Really appreciate you all coming here today. And yeah, I had every time I pass the college, there's always something happening, whether if it's on our soccer field, the lights are on, there's activities going on. And it almost feels like we're really like an athletic hub for the community. And especially as we get the pickleball court built and all that stuff, it will be even more so. What are some areas of opportunities? You mentioned a few of the community partnerships that have been developed over the years and over the decades rather. And what are some other opportunities for that kind of community partnerships to continue that kind of like athletic hub that we have here at Lane Community College?
You need to use the mic.
Yeah.
Well, opportunities would be having a baseball field that is playable, multi-use. The EMFC group has been a boisterous group supporting our last two bonds, and the main reason was that they had the ability to have access to our facilities. I don't think that they were shy about saying that when they were pumping it up amongst their groups. So they would like to use the excess field there. Then the fact that this community, just baseball wise, the baseball community is very small but very large. And the opportunities that would present to bring more people on this campus, it would be tremendous, because there's just locally, I can't even think. Salem, I don't know if they have a turf field for baseball. And so to me, that would be the biggest thing. If we could build some type of partnership, and I think we would then be another hub when it comes to that. The Legion group has a summer baseball tournament that has 16, 20 some teams. Sometimes they host state and regional tournaments, and they're always looking for excess facilities to expand their reach, because they're using the North Eugene field, and that just gets so much more wear and tear that they need to have some other things they'd like to spread out. So that's the again, don't mean to ruffle feathers, but that's the honest answer.
Thank you. I appreciate that answer.
Any other board members, questions or comments at this time?
I just want to thank you for coming. Thank you so much. Go Titans.
Yeah, go ahead, Denise.
Thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate your time and efforts. Excuse my potential ignorance. Do we have an athletic counselor, a counselor that's dedicated to the athletic department to help students with the transfer qualifications and all of that?
We currently have a part-time, very, very part-time academic advisor that is dedicated to the student athletes.
Part-time.
But yes, very short part-time.
Short part.
Yeah, timesheet part-time.
Okay. Okay. I come from a community college program that had a dedicated athletic counselor, and boy, were they kept busy with just knowing, the new rules and regulations and getting students lined up for their transfers and all that information.
Absolutely.
That's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. If we, this is a whole new can of worms, but if we could get a full-time or even, a two-time sheet, whatever, more people over there to help with direct our student athletes, I think we would have, again, more investment into those student athletes and their success, and there would be less ambiguity on what they need to take. There's a lot of good things that are going on that you guys have helped with the My Grad Plan and all that stuff. So these students are pretty savvy these days. But when it comes to direct transfers to NAIA and these other rules that the student athletes don't know, that's where that advisor comes in. And our general advisors have done an amazing job, but they don't know the academic athletic rules. So it would be awesome. Just thank you. Nice little plug there.
Not seeing anybody else, I'm going to ask one question, actually.
Sure.
We got the numbers today with the revenue and expenses. I was trying to figure out how they were calculated, as well as there was like 3 different sets of numbers.
Yeah, Kathy Thomas gave us those. I think one was the FTE reimbursement, one was the tuition and the other one was fees. That's my understanding.
Okay, can we just get a follow-up after this meeting that can just explain what went into those numbers? I'd very much appreciate just.
I can try to do that, but I believe that, like I said, in February of 23, I think Kathy
Feb.
did
23.
present those to the board, but I will try to get exactly that information with the follow-up for sure.
But I could go
can do
back
that.
and
Yeah.
see that from
Yeah.
2020.
Yeah, I'm speculating because I wasn't at the board meeting in February of 23, but
Chair Mulholland, we can certainly
I
get that
apologize.
information. I'm hoping that you can hear me.
That should have been directed to the president. I'll direct it to you. Yeah, if we could just get a clarification of just what those 3 different numbers are and what went into them, I'd very much appreciate that.
Certainly.
Not seeing anybody.
Just for the record, it's February 1st, 23.
February 1, 2020. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. That was before I got here. Steve.
Just very briefly, just wanted to add my compliments to all 3 of the student athletes. You were all so well spoken. Thank you for coming in.
Okay. With that, I think we're going to move on to our baseball panel.
Yes, Chair Mulholland, thank you for that as well. We have invited some from the community, guests from the community, and want them to come to the table. And I can certainly see that. Kara Flath, our Vice President of Finance and Operations, is going to facilitate the panel, and there will be ample opportunity for the board to engage with these individuals. So Kara, everyone is coming to the table, I can see now. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. Kara, before you get started, I would like to declare a potential conflict of interest. A nonprofit that I contract with has taken a stance against artificial turf at Golden Garden Ponds Park. I spoke to the Oregon Government Ethics Commission today, and they recommended that I declare a potential conflict of interest, so I'm doing so now. Thank you. You can begin.
Okay, thank you. Yes, okay, everyone at the panel, and we have some on Zoom as well as Jennifer Hayward and Colin Joyce.
Order.
Sorry.
Was there a potential conflict of interest? Should you pass the gavel? Or is that a?
No,
No,
it's not
no,
necessary.
no, there's no.
Potential conflict of
Okay,
interest.
just-
Doesn't mean it's actual.
Thank you.
I did also have a process question.
Sorry, I apologize. Go ahead, Lisa. And
So we have 5 people presenting on this topic and 45 minutes for the topic. So will each presenter be given a specific amount of time as well as time allotted for questions?
I did not get to talk to our staff prior to this meeting about how this part of the presentation would be facilitated.
Okay.
And so I would hope that each person would have a chance to speak, and then there would be time for questions as well.
I do have a,
Yes. Oh, yes, Kara, you're going to take over. We just have 1 or 2 questions to open this up and allow the panel to introduce themselves, and then certainly open it up after that.
okay, guys. We're good. I don't want to jump the gun. Okay. Time will start. Well, try to keep us on track as well. And I appreciate the robust conversation as well. So I do have a quick discussion to go through, just some highlights of how we came up to where we are. And then we'll have the panel introduce themselves. And then I will also let the board introduce yourselves to them, and then add 1 or 2 things if there is anything you would like to know from this panel, knowing the expertise that we've brought to the table. What would that be? So we can try to cover as much as possible, and we'll try to keep within the time frame. But I have a quick discussion. I'll go through this as quick as possible, still as thorough, but thank you for being here. As we get into discussion, I just wanted to provide a few key points and things, how we came to this decision that we did and the proposals that we brought forward to you. So there's 3 highlights we want to just discuss. The timing of field use, the amount of field use available, and then the weather impacts and considerations. So currently we're leasing space from community partners for practice and competition, which AD Shealy has discussed. However, we're facing limitations in available time since we're given the lowest priority on that list. Additionally, we have an agreement with one partner that this will be the final year we request space due to the strain it places on them in accommodating all of the teams. That is also the competition field we play on. The situation's created a sense of urgency for us. So at present, we only have one location available for competition and it'll accessible only for this season. Furthermore, if we proceed with natural grass, the field won't be ready for use until the 26-27 season, which is one of the timing concerns for us. And anyone who has laid sod on their own, which I have, you've been out there, you lay down the sod and you're like, don't you step on it because you have to let it settle. It takes time for the grass to root before you can use it. So that puts it out another season. So because of that season, that would be lost. We would also lose any competition field time and playing time, as Athletic Director Shealy has discussed. So therefore, it means we may have to delay volleyball a season as well, which we don't want to do to the students who have scholarships and come here for that plan. So the next one, it's crucial to recognize the value of the increased field time with turf compared to natural grass. Grass limits playable time due to the need for recovery, growth, and maintenance, which restricts usage not only for our team, but other teams who want to use that. And I also want to emphasize the potential use for the community. When I first started here at Lane, I was thrilled to hear when I talked to community members out at large how much they value Lane as a hub area for the community. As we celebrate our 60th anniversary, we want to continue the legacy that began long before us and will continue long after us. A key part of that is providing the community with key opportunities, including access to a quality baseball field if we can do that. If you haven't yet, I encourage you to go visit the field location during the daylight hours. The scenery is just impeccable where Lane's located, which you've all probably visualized and seen. Now imagine a fully functional field with batting cages, lights, grandstands, and eventually bathrooms. This is our long-term vision. We've heard from several community partners who are excited about the potential of the program, particularly because turf field would allow for year-round usage by various baseball programs, including our own. The partnerships are invested in our success because it benefits them as well as it benefits us. We have potential donors willing to help fundraise for enhancements to the field, with many discussions centering around turf field specifically. If we could fundraise the full cost of the baseball, we absolutely would. Our community partners want assurance the college is committed to this program and by committing to improving the field. We can also show them how dedicated we are by ensuring this program thrives and that we are determined to provide our student athletes the opportunity to see students play, succeed, and fully experience life here at Lane. Rain delays and cancellations are some of the most common related weather disruptions. If there's a chance of rain during a game, it must be postponed or canceled. With turf, a field can still be played during light rain and even after an hour of heavy rain, significantly reducing delays or cancellations. Natural grass requires irrigation during the hottest months and ongoing maintenance, which included supplies, equipment, and most importantly, labor, resources we just don't have budgeted for long-term sustainability. Turf will require maintenance, but this maintenance can be included in the purchase contract. And we also will need to replace the turf within 10 years, which we understand. And the goal would be that we can cover the cost of replacing the turf with the field fees that we will be charging, making it cost negligible. So I hit some of the key points. Thanks for your listening to that. And I'll move on to the panel discussion. I would ask all of our panel members to introduce themselves and their areas of expertise. We'll start with Greg.
Greg Shealy, Director of Athletics.
Hi, I'm Matt Kohler. I'm a partner with Cameron McCarthy, and we're a landscape architect and sports facility design specialist. I'm a graduate of Lane Community College. Actually, my dad got a degree here in the 70s. I got a degree in the 90s. My oldest son just did a transfer degree and is finishing up next term at the U of O in psychology. And my youngest son is a freshman as of couple of weeks ago. So Lane Community College I am Titan blue all the way through. So beyond sports facility design here, I've actually led the design of many of your memorable spaces. So the Center Building Plaza out here, the Arts and Art Tech building, the New Health Professions building, and the iTech building currently. So my goal here is to help in any way I can. I design both natural, sand-based, and synthetic turf fields, and will answer as many questions as I can with a timeline of having to leave at 7:10 because it's a family member's birthday, and I pushed their dinner as late as I could. So,
hello, I'm Alan Benavides. I'm the general manager for the Eugene Emeralds. Been the GM for the last 15 years, 21 years in professional baseball. Graduate of Fullerton Junior College. So not here, but Fullerton, California. Been in Eugene since 2010. Here just to give my experience and what we've experienced at PK Park with both. I've had artificial and natural turf surfaces in baseball, but come from a professional baseball point of view.
And we have Rob online. Can you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Rob Blockner. I'm the Vice President for Target Sports for the Western part of the United States, and our brand Field Turf is what is being proposed for the site today. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys may have that may help bring some light to some of the concerns.
And Jeff?
Jeff Frost, Brightworks Sustainability and Materials Technical Lead, trained as an architect, and I have 20 plus years in experience on the material side. Been involved with just about every building program that's been around. So it's Health Product Declaration, Living Building Challenge, Declare Label, current advisor to Cradle to Cradle. I've been on the LEED MR tag, advising on their LEED version 4.1 updates. I've been a founding member of the Mindful Materials, looking to try and make product selection easier. By and large, my day in and day out work is working with materials to try and help them optimize those. We largely look and work with clients like Salesforce, Harvard, and Brown to identify risks for health associated with the materials that they're putting into their spaces, and often get called in for these complicated kind of conversations and topics. And then also look at things like circularity, social implications, and carbon implications of the projects that we're working on as well. So happy to be here to answer questions as they come up.
Okay, and I would appreciate if we could move quickly through our board members. And again, one or two things that you're hoping to hear from the panel and with their expertise.
Yeah, Austin Folnigy. I represent Eastern Lane County. What I'm most curious about is the carbon footprint of, because obviously with grass you have to mow it, right? And what's the carbon footprint of, you know, mowing grass and so forth versus turf field and so forth. So I'd love to kind of get a estimation of that. And yeah, and also just like I kind of asked my question earlier about community like assets, and I have some more questions about how we can be an athletic hub for our community.
Hi there, I'm Steve Mattel, also one board member serving on behalf of the South Eugene area. On the environmental and health issues, I think my question are mostly to try and learn a little bit more about potential runoff impacts into streams. And other than that, I think other questions, concerns, curiosities I have will be addressed by other board members' concerns.
Lisa Fragla, I serve at large on the board, and I'm interested in how our community benefits agreement will be implemented, since we are considering using bond dollars for this project.
I think I see a lot of the information that was about, you know, what happens when it rains and it dries, but given that we are in a state that's had a drought almost the entire time I've lived here, and I'm kind of interested in how that is actually addressed. I mean, it seems like the turf is beneficial when we live in drought. So the amount of water it would take to manage a facility that's grass versus turf, and then runoff. Like how, you know, I know an environmental impacts for parking lots, which the footprint in the parking lot of this college is immense. So the mitigation that has to happen to handle the amount of runoff from the oil from cars to not go into spring, it's like there has to be some kind of system for runoffs to be mitigated in a similar way for this turf. So I'd just like to hear it because I didn't quite see it.
I had a number of questions that I prepared around higher heat now in the future around player injury, also on greenhouse gas emissions, as well as looking at turf, cost, and then the issues around 6-PPD and microplastics that I mentioned. So anyone that can speak to 6-PPD and microplastics concerns would be very much appreciated.
I'm Denise Diamond. I represent Western Lane out to the coast, to Florence. And I would be interested in some of the cost factors for replacement and renewal, just maintenance, I guess, would be the category that I would ask questions about.
Kevin Alltucker, I'm also an at-large trustee. I'm curious as to your process in considering scientific information. You know, how do you rank the credibility of the information? So, you know, as a board, I would hope that we, you know, pay attention to the peer-reviewed scientific data. And I appreciated the information that was provided to the board, whether it was yesterday or this morning. Answered a lot of my questions. I appreciate it. And I'm curious to know how you filter through some of the sources that are not scientific, they're not peer-reviewed, they're secondary or worse. There may be newspaper articles or position pieces from advocacy or activist groups. So that's what I'm interested in, and kind of, we need to make a decision based on science and how to mitigate as best as possible the risks. Thank you.
My name is Sophie Gibson, and I'm going to be asking questions on behalf of the student body. I think that it's really important that we advocate for the time not wasted of students, and that our student resources also aren't wasted. So I'll be asking questions about the timeline that's going to be happening, because I feel like that's very important. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll try to compartmentalize these together, so forgive me. And Jennifer Hayward's also online. She'll help me divert this to maybe the right areas. But just kind of starting at the top, I wonder if we want to hear from Jeff and Rob about the environmental impacts of turf. And then I heard carbon footprint and runoff and greenhouse gases, 6-PPD, any of those contexts. Maybe we can start with Jeff. Can you help any context in that situation?
Yeah, so I mean, there's definitely a lot of data that's out there. To your point, we tend not to look at some of the anecdotal articles or newspaper articles that are out there. We're looking for kind of scientific information that's backing. We also look to research centers that can provide some of the data. And then we also will correspond with some toxicologists to help us understand some of the nuances related to the testing that's out there, so that we understand where kind of current best practices are. So we've done a little bit of that as well. Turf fields in general have a kind of a handful of environmental potential challenges. One, obviously, the microplastics associated with that material. You have a plastic field, the fibers and filaments that are associated with that product, including some of the backings, are all plastic materials that will degrade over time, especially through exposure to UV. You also have, especially when you're using something like SBR, which is basically chrome rubber for the infill, or something like EPDM or TPE, which is also another plastic. You have another opportunity for exposure of microplastics as well, because those will break down over time. I will say, I'll just put a pin in the fact that there are natural products that you can use for those infills, so that helps to solve one of those. The other piece of it is that in addition to just the microplastics component of it, and there's a laundry list of kind of health issues associated with those, and definitely a lot of emerging research. One of the biggest challenges with it is when those plastics are contaminated with other chemicals of concern. Sometimes they're additives, sometimes they're plasticizers, vulcanizing agents. There's kind of a whole host of things that get added to plastics. And so I would stress that we should be looking for things that have been thoroughly tested and demonstrated that they've removed what we think are those probable challenges. And I think we know what some of those are. PFAS is one of those. Another one that you mentioned was the 6 ppd, which is also translated to 6 ppdq. This is a more recent discovery from the chrome rubber side of things. Largely, when you're avoiding chrome rubber, we can avoid this conversation of having to deal with this. So I'd recommend that that's something that's being considered. I think that's what's been proposed already as an alternative to that, although I haven't looked at what those alternative testing is. But largely, that's a vulcanizing agent used in tires. So as soon as you get away from EPDM and the rubber tires, you're largely going to avoid some of those compounds. Let's see, is there another one that's out there? I mean, there's a whole host of other things that are related to the infill materials in general. But if you have another specific thing for any of those topics, let me know.
Oh, can you speak more about the carbon footprint? Thank you for giving us examples of the chemical and the and so forth. My question was more around the carbon footprint.
I haven't studied the carbon footprint. If that's something that the team would like to look into, we could do that. What
Understood.
I'm not aware of is what information is available currently.
Okay.
If that's something the board is curious to dive into, that could be something we can look at.
All right, not a problem. Thank you.
And I wondered if we wanted to go to Rob and let you respond, add some context to it, especially as it relates to, what's in the turf that we're proposing.
Yeah. And can you hear me first off? Okay. Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me and thank you for the opportunity. But there was a lot of questions there, so let me try to do my best to knock down the pins as I can remember them. But first and foremost, Field Turf strives and prides themselves at being extremely progressive when it comes to sustainability. In fact, in Wilsonville, Oregon, right off the North Wilsonville exit, we have our recycling facility. So all the fields that come up out of the ground go to that recycling facility. We separate the infill, we reuse the infill, and we either recycle if the customer wishes to, or we repurpose the actual turf itself. So it's call it a plant or a factory like no other in the United States right now, and we're extremely proud of that, to have that here in Oregon. Second, PFAS. There are low levels of PFAS in millions and millions of millions of products. I think the key thing here is, are they at levels that are considered dangerous to the public? And right now, specific PFAS compounds that are detected within our product, they are well below the EPA's RCA constituent list. And in some ways, they're lower than even some of the most stringent EPA soil levels. So we feel very good about that. To date, there's not a PFAS level for turf. No one has come up with that. I know people are racing to get to that level. Some people claim to be PFAS free, but it might be just because their parts per million is so low that they're able to say that. We will not go out and say we're PFAS free, but we will most definitely stay behind our product, and we believe that we're well below the reported EPA guidelines for other PFAS rated items such as soil. 6 ppd, otherwise turned into the 6 ppdq. 6 ppd comes from a chemical. I think I'm sorry, I don't forget the gentleman's name that talked about vulcanization. It is a chemical added to tires, road tires, that basically keep it from cracking. Well, what turns that into a dangerous, I'd call it chemical, that flows into streams and that can affect the coho salmon is really, it's because of that interaction from the road and the chemicals on the road. It's a unique reaction based off of those that interaction. Okay. And so in a typical recycling process, we have not seen, nor do we have seen any issues with the recycling of rubber and turning it into a crumb rubber to be used in the field. And more importantly, this rubber concern has been going on for over a decade. maybe 15 years now. And there's been hundreds of state, national, international government agency reports that have deemed crumb rubber safe. I have 4 daughters. They all play sports, and not one wink of sleep do I miss and worried about their safety on an artificial field. Okay, heat. A lot of heat tests are run, and typically where you'll get this exorbitant amount of heat is when you do it. Let's say we'll take an infrared test, and it'll be right up against the turf. Well, if you were to go to 2 to 5 feet and compare natural grass in similar ambient temperatures, natural grass from the 2 to 5 foot range compared to artificial turf, and we've done those tests, third party, you're going to see that the range of turf, the range of the temperature is very, very similar. And so, again, when you start getting up in the 95s and the 100s and the 105s, yeah, it's going to be hot, but it's going to be hot everywhere you're at, to be honest with you. And I think that schools and districts have taken precautions and even saying, hey, anything over 95 degrees, like the OSAA, I think has a rule, I think it's 92 or 93 degrees, don't quote me, that there's a certain level that, hey, we can't have activities until we get down to X. Again, certain districts have different requirements, but from a ambient temperature comparing 2 to 5 feet on natural versus turf, you're going to find that it's very similar. How am I doing so far knocking down pins? Not that you like my answers, but am I covering them?
That's all right, Rob. I was going to throw it over a little bit to Matt, who has to leave in 15 minutes, and I appreciate you making time. Out of the list of questions we had, is there any context or information you'd like to add to before you have to sneak out?
I think one question was about safety that was asked, and I think Rob could also apply to this. But so within safety concerns, what has been found in studies both by the NFL and other groups is that there is no difference in the safety between a synthetic turf field and a natural turf field. And in most cases, less injury impacts from synthetic turf fields. And there's a few reasons for that. It's very difficult to keep a natural turf field maintained to the level that it should be. It's very quick for people to go, hey, that field needs maintenance when it's synthetic turf, right? It's like, hey, that doesn't feel right. We get less of that with natural turf fields. And again, I design both, and I think they all have their place. And I'll be the first to tell you that if you could afford the maintenance and the process to have a sand-based field like a Premier League soccer team, they're the best fields in the world. But there's a reason no one's allowed to walk on those fields unless it's game day in London. So because they do take a lot of work to do it. I know that, Rob, there's a number of reports both for the NFL Players Association this last year as well as others. But the other thing that we do that not only, and this was done on both on your soccer field when we replaced it 2 summers ago, is we require full athlete testing. And so many of you have maybe heard the term GMAX, which has to do with head impact. So for those of you that have kids, when you go play at a playground, playground surfacing is tested to a level of GMAX and HIC. Fields and concussion-based injuries have been focused on head impact. But what we test to and what we tested your soccer field to is a full athlete testing, which does vertical deformation, force reduction, rotational resistance, cleat release. All of those are injuries for lower leg, because what we see is as many injuries in professional and amateur sports for ACLs, MCLs, ankles, as you do for head impact injuries. And so those are tests that we're hoping to see applied to natural turf fields. There's been a push for that in Texas in particular for a long time, because you can only assume that you're playing on fields there that are much harder if they can't water them as often. But currently that is what we apply to our high level sports fields. So when it comes to player safety, I'm responsible, I feel, for every athlete that kind of goes on our field. So whether it is a natural turf field at a park, whether it is a sand-based athletic field, whether it's a natural turf field with various drainage aspects added, or the variety of levels of synthetic turf fields we have designed, we really push for that high-level athlete safety. Never know who's going to be the next professional. So
That's a follow-up of Matt, just to try to maximize the
Yes,
10 minutes you have remaining. Perhaps of all the folks assembled here, you might have the most to say about sort of the site-specific conditions, you know, runoff in particular. A few of us have expressed interest that, so maybe you could address.
yeah, I mean, I think one thing I can do is talk a little bit about the makeup of a synthetic turf field. So comparable to a natural turf field. And I would say the biggest concern I have for your field, if somebody was to come to me as they did and go, what would you recommend here? Its location and what you're trying to do with it and the amount of use that it needs, as well as the undocumented fill soil that's currently in that site. I'll note that we're also designing the pickleball facility and are looking at like post-tension because of the movement of the soil there. And if you've walked on that baseball field, I recommend not good shoes when you do it. It's got a lot of issues with the soil makeup that's there. Based on that, we recommended a synthetic turf field because we feel like it's going to get the most use, and we try to balance not only sustainable impacts to sites, but also social impacts and making sure that students can play on those fields as much as possible, as well as the community. Any community college, any university, not to mention K through 12 schools, end up having extensive amount of usage time by the community. And so that weighs into that. With a synthetic turf field, it has on average a minimum of 8 inches of crushed stone underneath the synthetic turf. And that is the drainage layer. What that is meant to do is to capture and hold water that runs through the infill. I will clarify for Jeff and for others here that the product that has been recommended for this field is an infield that is made up of fractured sand versus round sand and olive core. That is to create the most lifelike clay for a ball bounce. The outfield is intended to either be cryogenic, which is a fractured rubber, or SBR rubber as a kind of a shredded, and it's a round sand, and that's what you do to create the softer grass feel that's there. That material is over the top, is inset into the turf itself, that has a backing on it with drainage applications and holes through it that then goes into what we call, it's 2 inches of a leveling course rock. It's usually like a quarter open rock that kind of can knit together and create a stable base. And then under that is 3/4 open drain rock that sits on top of geofabric. The cross slope in that field is intended to be kind of a 0.5% in any direction. And it has what's called flat edge drain pipes that sit at the bottom, usually on what we call a herringbone pattern, kind of 45 degrees to the angle of slope of that subgrade. And we space them usually every 15 or 20 feet. So water that doesn't evaporate or that is made its way through the rock section itself will slowly flow to those pipes. It's collected in those pipes and then taken to what's called a collector at the edge of the field that then is outfalled into the storm system or into a storm facility, depending on the jurisdiction and the site location. So that's kind of your general makeup and how runoff works. So that rock zone becomes both a holding space and a filter zone for those materials. That rock is reused. You replace the turf a few times before you do the rock. And so that can kind of tell you, we make sure that it is maintaining a infiltration rate. So that can kind of give you an idea of the minimal pass through of any material into that rock because it would clog it.
And then quick follow-up to those similarly designed fields, do you or others that you're aware of test that, that the runoff water as it collects before it hits the rivers, just to see what are the long-term impacts? What are we putting into the river? Is a concern that some of us are going to have?
We don't, that's not our specialty for testing. However, and Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe within the reports that were done by the EPA and the CDC that they have tested those in numerous locations, looking to see if that water runoff is meeting any level of contamination that would create a concern.
Correct. I mean, out of the thousands of fields that are in the ground, this is obviously not the first awarding body to have those types of concerns. So very, very much been tested on multiple levels. So again, I'm sure that we would have some of those reports that if we needed to, but I think those are also site specific as well.
I had a quick follow-up question as well, and it might actually be Jennifer Hayward who could answer this, but my understanding is that we don't tie into the city infrastructure, and so we don't. So, okay. So what would be the drain option for that? Is it going to go into our ponds?
I believe, go ahead,
Oh,
Jennifer.
go ahead, Matt.
So there is both the within these two facilities, we're creating kind of an outfall area, like a depressed filter area. So the idea for whenever you're treating stormwater, so even water off the roads, is you try to get into grassy areas where nature can help pull out those or separate any issues or oils that are of concern from roads. And that's what the ditches are along 30th Avenue. So most of your stormwater in those areas goes to kind of a depression or a lawn, a zone area that then what doesn't infiltrate back into the ground there overflows into the 30th Avenue ditches that act as a stormwater swale, basically, that runs along both sides of the road.
Yeah, I'm trying to, for sake of time, get around to everybody. Alan, thank you for being here. Couple questions for you. Based on what has been your experience, turf versus natural grass, and based on the things that you see and know about Lane, do you have any thoughts on what we're doing and what you think might work best?
Well, I would reiterate Matt's initial point that if you had the budget to have a sand-based Bermuda field, I mean, I'm going to Dodger Stadium on Friday for game 1. I'm really excited to see that field, but we live in the Northwest and I don't know how you do it. We've been at PK Park for 2010. I don't know how we would get those games in. We have field turf with the Ducks. It is heavy usage, a lot of practice, and the field consistently gets ranked as one of the top in the league, even with the dual usage. But I would say that we do manage to take care of it very well. We have a full-time ground crew staff for both the Ducks and the M's. We maintain it, we scrub it, we groom it, magnets. Like it takes work, right? You just don't lay a turf field down and let it go. If you want to get the longevity of it, you got to make sure you take care of it. But had really good success with it. Would love to see grass. I've got a little bit of experience trying to build a stadium and understand that, like, when we were looking at trying to, we were looking at possibly doing natural grass, but at the end of the day, just because of where we live, we'd have to do artificial. It's amazing to think that we have such a large baseball and softball community here, and we just don't have anything for these kids. Publicly 90-foot fields, we just don't have them. We just don't have them. For the amount of kids that play baseball and softball, publicly owned field, are all in high school fields. You got PK Park, you got Bushnell. You don't have a lot. Just don't. And kids kind of age out and they just don't play. Or they're going out to Medford, or they're going to Bend, or they're going to Portland. We're losing all those dollars, frankly. I will say that also, I will add that from a professional baseball field, and we're talking about safety a little bit. I will say that, we do have some concern with it. I'm just going to be frank and honest about it. We do have some concern with artificial turf sometimes. Some coaches don't like playing on it. It's a little wet, it's a little slippery. Players are sliding 10, 15 feet past the bag, worried about rolling an ankle, coming across the bag. Those are concerns. They do play a little different. They do. When you're playing, they're probably pretty equal. But also in the summertime, there is, people laugh at us, but we're out there watering the turf in the middle of summer because you need to water down that sand. You need to make sure that it's, so that it plays a little more true. So there was an analogy of somebody's telling us, like, one of the coaches was complaining about the ball not getting through the middle, base hits not getting through. And it was because we weren't watering the sand. This was like 10 years ago. Kind of like playing soccer on the beach. The ball travels harder on the wet sand than it does on the dry sand. So it does take, some work. So just so y'all know, that's my intake.
I have a couple follow-ups. if possible.
Sure. Matt, do you want to have a quick add on that? And then absolutely.
I just wanted to kind of note for this board, because you guys aren't the, I mean, you're not the only community college kind of looking at this right now, nor are you the only kind of higher education facility in Oregon dealing with kind of it's funny, in my design history, it's been, for a few years, it'll be all soccer fields, and then it'll be all football fields. And right now it's all baseball and softball fields, because the issue you guys are having with playability and being able to keep your team on campus and keep a team just in general is happening across the board. So we're converting Willamette University's soccer or baseball and softball field to synthetic turf. If Chemeketa Community College's bond passes November 5th, they will be converting theirs to synthetic turf. If Clackamas Community College bond passes November 5th, they would be doing the same type of thing. And that's just based on they're struggling, not unlike you all are. I would say you have an extra little issue that you have way too many geese out there that some of those other schools aren't dealing with as much, but it is kind of an item that's happening a lot in Oregon right now. There was a kind of a push for that with the original PK Park. There were a number of fields that were done, but there's I would say a vast majority of the high schools in Portland have transitioned and converted to synthetic turf because they were not able to get games in, and they could not keep students through the summer because some of them had graduated. So,
yeah. And then also, I have sit on the board for Ted Norman, the youth complex. We have 4 fields out in Eugene. Same problem. We have 4 grass fields. We can't play. We're like, season starts in March. Some of those games aren't starting until the end of April. So again, we're trying to convert to artificial turf there.
Did you have a follow-up? And then I'll have a follow-up. Sorry. Okay. With regards to the heat, so I read shared with the board a study from Brigham Young that showed that their artificial turf field got as much as 86 degrees hotter than a grass field on a summer day. Also shared with the board a climate trends study from GEOS that's forecasting that by 2050, we're going to have an additional 30 days a year above 90 degrees. And by 2080, another 58 days a year above 90 degrees. Can you speak to what is it like to play on turf when it's hot now? And what will it be like if we have another 30 to 60 days above 90 degrees in 20 years?
And I don't know if Greg, if you have some context around Oregon has an OSHA index for workers. Is there something around a limit of heat when we don't have athletes out in the fields playing, and how is?
Our conference does not have a heat index. We have a smoke
Okay.
index.
Oh, we don't.
Conference does not have a heat index, but we do have a smoke index.
Do we have a policy of heat for athletes if there's a heat limit when they're?
During the soccer season, I believe it's when it gets above 92 degrees, we have water breaks mandated at half of each half. And it's I think a 3-minute break to get water. Anything below that is discretionary to the officials. And so if they felt that it felt warm to them and it was 86 degrees, they could mandate at 15 minutes into the half, okay, 3-minute break for water. But at 90, I think it's 92, don't quote me, is when it's we follow the NCAA rules on that, and you guys might be able to address that as well.
Yeah, I can speak to that too. We also, for example, like at Hudson Stadium, we have a product that we put on top of it called Cool Play, and it's an infill. It's a TPE type infill that basically it's more of it soaks in the heat a little bit, and we've had readings from anywhere from 20 to 30 degrees cooler. Again, there's so many different variables, but we do have other options. And again, it's going to be tough to go an article you read or about 86 degrees. That would be, I don't know how that's possible, but again, I haven't read the article and I don't know the science of where that came from. So I don't want to dispute that. But at the same time, we've done third-party independent testing, and the amount of variables that it takes to to understand the true difference is really going to be field independent.
And there was a 2012 Penn State University study that looked at a lot of those variables between the different colors of turf and the infill options. Now we've got a lot more kind of cool or eco-friendly or natural alternatives that could help to cool the fields over the SBR or TPE or EPDM solutions. But generally those studies show, you know, what you were noting was somewhere between 158 to 171 degrees on the field, or usually above the field. And then the National Recreation and Park Association recommends that when things are at 80 degrees ambient temperature, that you start limiting play and how much time people can be spending on the field. And then it starts ramping up at 90 to only 1 hour of activity. And then when you get to like 91 to 104 degrees, they recommend limiting that, plus having water breaks as they go through it. And then to your point, we're expecting 32 additional degrees by 2020, or 42 days in, let's see, 32 days so far in 2024 that were above 90 degrees. 42 days in 2021 was the record. That's generally going to continue to keep increasing. And similar data we showed was, or gathered was around 3.5 to 4, almost 5 degrees by 2050, ambient temperature increases. So anticipation of 100-degree days and 90-degree days and 80-degree days are all going to continue to keep increasing.
If I can add, the baseball season typically is going to be September through March.
Yeah.
May.
We'll be done by the middle of May.
Yeah, and ideally, we'd like to use the field year round, but we also understand there is a heat index. There's a heat index for our workers. We would want them to, and I'm sure that none of the coaches want to put any athletes at risk. So if the heat gets too high, they would I have no doubt in our coaches that they would discontinue and use discretion. But just so you know, the hottest months are not the months of our peak seasons.
I'll just add as well, I think that it's a good point about the time of season. So you can get the surface temperature can be warmer with direct sunlight for sure. The studies that are out there are showing that, you know, if you measure the air temperature at 2 feet above and 5 feet above the field, they're more within 1 to 2 degrees of each other. But the surface temperature definitely is warmer on a synthetic turf field than a natural turf field. That can definitely be problematic if it's middle of summer. If it's 101 degrees here, that field's going to be warm. It's a problem in Arizona, right? When it's 115 degrees. On the flip side, there is a benefit in that these fields don't freeze like a natural turf field. So when you are trying to play on them in January and February, you actually get a safer field than a frozen grass field. That's a good point.
Follow up, that same climate assessment suggests that we're going to have half as much snowfall by 2050. Jeff, can you speak to, are we expecting less snow and cold weather along with the additional hot weather?
I looked at information. I can look into it a little bit deeper, but when I looked at things relative to precipitation and snowpack, at least for that area, I didn't see significant decreases in some of their long-term projections. Whether or not that is snow versus rain, that type of change doesn't necessarily show up, but amount of water that was coming in was clearly, lowering, but not significantly in such a way. I was actually kind of amazed and made me want to stay here from a climate perspective. But generally temperatures were going up, even if the water was staying stable.
Okay. We'll just ask others to take a look at that other report, which does, I believe, suggest approximately a 50% reduction in snowfall by 2050. Go ahead, Kevin, and then I have Denise.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, panelists. Appreciate you being here. Matt, I think you're in trouble.
Do you have a couch? I'll be back. I did text my wife if you saw me on my phone just now, tell her to go.
I appreciate your time. Appreciate your
I
time.
might need a couch. So.
Thank you very much. I want to get back to Trustee Gibson's point of timeline. If there's someone who can speak to the timeline, just kind of refresh it, put it in simple terms. I'm hearing, I think, at some point, we need to make a decision And if we don't, then we risk losing men's baseball. Then the collateral damage would then also be choosing a women's team to eliminate. If you can kind of clarify that timeline a little bit for me so I can understand it better.
Yeah, I can help clarify, and Jennifer and then maybe Matt can help with some context. But there is an immediate relief with having a synthetic turf field. We will be able to play on it by August of 2025, which is the next season that we won't have any competition space. So if we do not do that and we go forward with natural grass or decide not to do a baseball field, we won't have an opportunity to play any baseball games next year because we have no location to practice or have that. In essence, because of Title IX concerns, we would also have to pause volleyball until we reinstituted baseball. So that's our most pressing concern and one of the factors that feeds into this.
Thank you.
And it's because of and that's where I can say Matt can speak to having natural grass is going to take an extra season.
On the construction standpoint, you can build a synthetic turf field during the winter. In fact, we replaced PK Park's turf a couple of years ago, and funny enough, it actually snowed on it right we were in the middle of it, which had its own little curveball to deal with. But because of the nature of what you're not growing grass, you can build that as we're anticipating with this construction through the winter so that it is ready for that next season of baseball. With a natural turf field, we would not want to start tearing up your field in the middle of winter. We would need to build it next late spring through the summer. And within seeding windows, which is kind of middle of March through middle of October, I'm sure if you've done it at your home at all, you know that I threw out seed like 3 weeks ago. I don't know that it's going to sprout right now. The chances of it being grown in and strong enough by that next spring are pretty limited. So you would probably need to run another season. And so I think that a natural turf field would probably push you out about 2 years, just to be safe. I mean, we're dealing this with some natural turf soccer fields that we did in Happy Valley, and they've been a struggle based on the users were hoping to use them right away. And you got to let it grow in for it to have that longevity.
Is this in response to this question? Okay,
Nope.
Then one follow-up. Is there a difference between seeding and sod with regards to the amount of time that it would take to be playable?
There's a little, it's somewhat similar. So you get an immediate look with sod, but you still have to get the root system to go in, right? So it's probably a little bit faster than seeding, but it really depends on time of year. The issue with sod is you want to make sure that it's really rooted because it can become a safety concern because you can plant too hard and it slips out. So thank you. Well, we usually do those a lot of cases where it's a facility, if it's not at even sports, where we're just trying to get that immediate look and get it buttoned up for erosion.
Is this related? Otherwise, I'll put you at the end of the queue. Okay, I've got Denise and then Austin and then Steve.
So what I'm understanding is that, of course, we don't have control of the rainfall and the freezes and the heat and all of these factors that, but it sounds like what we really want to know is the flexibility for maintenance, because either way that you go, right, the layers and the way you're building it has to be, you have to be able to address it. So if something in the fiber is going amiss or something with the not enough layers or something has washed out or something, you have to be able, right, to address it, to get in there and to have some flexibility. So are there some experiences or point of view about how flexible maintenance is on either one of these turfs?
So I can tell you, what you deal with natural turf is maintaining it with the right fertilizer, the right amount of water. So you'll need to put in an irrigation system. And that's something that I always try to note because there is a goal, a lot of, look, I'm a landscape architect, so I'm concerned with plastics and rubber as well. But I also try to remind people that irrigation systems are plastic pipe. So, and water being dispersed through plastic pipes. So it's something that always try to compare all the pieces, right? On a natural turf field, there is the mowing aspect, there is the fertilizer. The biggest thing that we battle in the valley is poa grass. It's a weak-rooted grass that blows in. So not only are we the greatest location for growing grass, I mean, we grow a lot of the grass seed for fields all over the world. We also have a lot of stuff that blows in, and it's a weak-rooted grass that pulls out immediately, and it's nearly impossible to keep out of. It's in your lawns at home. It's very difficult to keep out of high-level athletic fields here. Pat Bay Field, before it was moved to the other side of Autzen Stadium, was probably one of the best sand-based athletic fields I've ever been around. And I'm saying that as our office designed it, but it wasn't me. It was one of the previous principals to me. I just got lucky to work on it a little bit. That field was amazing, but it did mean that they had to kind of strip and redo that sod every 3 years, which was a huge cost impact. We also did natural turf sand-based fields for at the U of O behind Hayward Field, rec fields 3 and 4, and they were amazing. The U of O, though, they would try to stake them to have them rest. College students don't listen. I know I have 4 in my house right now. They would go pull the stakes out and play on them. And what they found is they could not keep them up and keep the maintenance going. And so they finally had us come back in and convert them to synthetic turf. And it was based on the high use, and that's really where it's at. On synthetic turf, it comes with an 8-year warranty. So if anything happens to that turf that is manufacturer, Rob comes out personally and replaces it. Well, maybe not personally, but his company is there to deal with that, as with any turf company. There are areas that get replaced a little sooner in baseball: batter's box, pitching mound, where the pitcher steps, and then first and second base. But those are built into the product and as part of the purchase. When we did your soccer field here, we actually built in some maintenance. So Field Turf actually, as part of the initial bid and build, they come out and do a certain level of maintenance on those fields for you. General maintenance on a field like that is going to be kind of litter pickup. It's using a magnet on the back of a little cart, like golf cart, and it just picks up any debris. A litter cat is another option. It kind of just helps pick up any trash, leaves, that type of thing. And then depending on level of use, usually once a month, you might want to groom the field, which is where they just kind of help kind of brush through the rubber and sand or the sand and olive, depending on the different areas, to help make sure that it stays nice and level and kind of a good playing surface. That's a general kind of difference on the two maintenances. I always try to make sure I tell people neither field is maintenance free. Your maintenance amount on a synthetic turf field will obviously be less. What I always tell people is don't just start spending that money on fancy new things. Kind of put it away, because it'll help buy the replacement turf when that happens. I think someone asked about the cost of a maintenance, the turf kind of at a replacement period. For a field this size, I think you could assume about $1 million to replace the turf, probably in about 10 years.
Austin, and then Steve.
Let me share something. So I've done a lot of construction. One of the things I did by myself was removing asbestos tile from the side of the house, and the remediation process that I went through to do that was insane. Also with the Holiday Farm fires, there's a lot of houses that had asbestos burned, got inside my house. Is a big reason why I couldn't move back into my house. So anyway, that all being said, I hear the community asset aspect of this, of an artificial turf field. And what I want to hear from Jeff, Rob, Matt, anyone, am I installing a asbestos siding, essentially, am I going to have remediation issues down the road? Because back then, we thought asbestos was great. We used it for everything. And then it turned out that actually it was bad. And there was a lot of remediation and a lot of horrible things that happened because of it. So what I'm trying to get at here, using that analogy, is so am I installing an asbestos grade issues with an artificial turf field? I'd love to hear from Jeff, Rob, Matt. Love to hear from you on that.
I can go real quick and just say no. The reality is that the testing that we do on all products, not just fields, but children's toys, fast food wrappers now, kind of everything, we've learned a lot as a community. That's why we have microplastics and PFAS in our soil, right? Because we've been manufacturing in this country more than 100 years. And let's be honest, not all of it was the right way, right? Lessons learned. And I would like to say that I think that the amount of focus on the synthetic turf industry in particular has been so stringent. And I appreciate that, because I don't want to be known as the person recommending things that aren't that are bad for everyone. And so they have one of the most critical eyes on them for testing and trying to make sure that their product meets high level standards. So I take that. I mean, I can't guarantee anything, but I see the kind of level of critical eye that is on this and the track and field industry. And because player safety is important, but also environmental safety.
Yeah. Yeah, Jeff, love to hear your thoughts.
You're on mute, Jeff.
It tends to be a can of worms, to be honest with you. Are you getting into an asbestos-like situation where people are going to be getting sick and sued over chronic diseases? I would say probably not. The challenges that we have right now with being able to determine cause and effect based on the amount of exposure that we have with plastics and chemicals in general on the planet is pretty limited, because we're bombarded by so much of it. So are we going to look back? Even now, we're looking back, and even our clients are looking back and saying, we just need to be stopping some of these practices. Now, I'm not here to advocate that you're doing turf or not doing turf. I'm here to just try and help you find the information that you need to make a decision on that. But if you did do artificial turf, my goal would be to say, let's do it in the most sustainable way that we can. But yes, we're putting plastics into the environment. If you're actively putting SBR rubber into the environment, these things are going to break down over time. It's going to be contributing to this problem. And as much to Matt's point that we've got this all over our world, if we're continuing to keep putting it in every single time, we're going to continue to keep asking these questions down the road of like, when did we stop? When did we stop? So one of the things that I'd be interested to understand, and I haven't had a chance to dig into, is degradation studies, like how quickly or often does the plastic fibers break down? But again, at the end of the day, this is about trying to make sure that it's protected. So if you need to do an artificial turf, which we understand there's lots of communities that need to do that, even the ones that have high sustainability standards, I would be saying, what is the absolute best that we can do to make sure that we're minimizing and eliminating those impacts? And we've done that for lots of other universities as well with artificial turf. But it's trying to avoid some of these very large known toxins because of that exact same problem. Now, granted, Rob has some components that they can recycle these materials, but as we go into this work, more and more of these recycled materials are problematic because they're contaminated. And in the future, we're not going to want to be reusing a lot of these materials. We're seeing this a lot in the drywall industry, where they did a huge uptake to increase recycled content based on LEED. That ended up being mostly fly ash. And now nobody wants to recycle that gypsum board because that fly ash is a contaminant for everybody else's supply streams. So those are the types of things that we're looking for, really trying to eliminate those problematic chemicals. And then I would say looking for infills that are as natural as possible, that meet the performance requirements that Matt alluded to, the GMAX performance requirements, which we know they're out there. So happy to have those conversations.
Awesome. Thank you.
I think you had one more person.
Yeah, Rob.
And then we'll go to Sophie for a follow-up, and then Steve.
Yeah, again, I've been doing this for 22 years. I've had hundreds of installers that have worked over those 2+ decades. Knock on wood, I have yet to have anybody come across any sort of health issue. I think that from a reusability and a recycling standpoint, there is more time. There's never been more time, money, and effort put into the ability to recycle safe, wise, as well as different types of products. I mean, the olive core is, just 4 or 5 years old. And so we're constantly testing new ideas. That said, I still have yet to see anything. For example, when we tear out a field, we recycle the infill. We test that infill. and we put it through a third-party test. And from a degradation standpoint, it hasn't gotten to a point where that doesn't meet. I mean, we're talking millimeters. You're talking almost microns of a difference where the degradation has not shown up in those tests. I'm not saying it doesn't degrade by any stretch of imagination. What I'm saying is just in 2 life cycles, we haven't seen that happen. Again, yes, are there alternative infields? 100%. Can we introduce those? And Matt is well-versed in our offering, 100%, and happy to do so. But to answer your question, do I have any concern? My personal opinion, and again, obviously I'm biased, but I have been doing this for almost 2.5 decades, and I have zero concern.
Thank you. Did you have a follow-up or
Yeah.
a different line of questioning?
No, I do have a follow-up. Thank you. So personal experience is great, but here as a student, we're not allowed to use very much personal experience. We're required to use scientific sources and use those and quote them. So you said no very confidently to the asbestos analogy. So I'm just wondering, are there sources that you use to say that, or is that just a personal preference?
It's based on the reports that I've read from both Washington State, Oregon State, the EPA, and the CDC as they test those materials. And so that's where, sorry, I should have clarified that I was saying no personally based on having read those reports. But I also don't want to just say emphatically no, because as we've talked here, you can read a number of different reports. I kind of focus more on those that have had long level testing and whether I'm supposed to trust the government or not, I'm trusting some of the government agencies that are doing the work. So,
and let me add to that. When it comes to PFAS, microplastics, 6-PBD, again, there are countless studies directed by the EPA regarding these issues. And so we take those extremely seriously, and we welcome third-party scientific testing. Because really, at the end of the day, we're part of these communities too. So us kids, we all play on it. And so far, as stringent as the EPA and as intense as and much of a magnifying glass that has been on from a lot of third parties, we have yet to see any issues that have bothered the EPA or any other governmental agency for that matter.
I think we're putting too much credit with the EPA, to be honest with you, for some of the testing. A lot of the studies have been non-conclusive. Some of them, the most recent one around the turf and SBR infill materials, they were really interested in trying to explore human connections and risk associated with that, but really were only able to analyze heavy metals in that study. So they found no conclusive evidence of bioaccumulation of those metals in the study, but they weren't able to test for any of the other cursors that they were studying. And tests all across the globe are showing larger concerns, even EU putting bans on microplastic and rubber turf over the course of the next 8 years by 2031. California is starting to put limitations on the manufacturing of some of these chemicals. So again, I think, the EPA is largely kind of chasing the industry with this. We've had lots of issues and been sounding the alarm for flame retardants and PFAS and all of these other things. And we still only have, 6 chemicals that are banned in the United States. But this abundance of overuse of some of these chemicals of concern that lots of other industries have been just screaming about for years. And I would say PFAS is a, huge emerging challenge and problem that a lot of us are trying to address.
You'd have PFAS in soil.
Yeah,
have
PFAS everywhere, but it's a matter of how intentionally we're adding it. Like what processes or practices are being done in the development of those fibers that's putting the PFAS in there in the first place. It doesn't need to be in the product. It's largely just used as a lubricant in that system. And so trying to remove it from it is, it's a challenge, but it can be done. It has been done. We've seen it done.
Steve?
Yeah, well, first off, I just wanted to thank folks for the discussion. I'm learning a lot, so appreciate it. At this point, really, my remaining question is something it feels like we've kind of touched on superficially, but haven't delved into all that much. I get the sense that we have left some potential options on the table to, further reduce the risks, right? Basically swapping out the crumb rubber for something else. We've talked a little bit around the edges of it. I assume it costs more. I assume it needs to be replaced more frequently. I assume perhaps it doesn't play as well. I'm going to guess a bunch of those things are there, and that's why to date, whatever we're talking about crumb rubber and not the alternatives. But those are assumptions. I was wondering if we could get just a summary about what those other options are and why we're not discussing them this evening as the prime alternative.
Yeah, so there's so your infield of your field won't have rubber. That's where the olive and the fractured sand is, the infield area. The outfield is where the rubber is shown currently as that product. There are other products, and I'm sure Rob can go into depth with that, maybe even Jeff. There's wood fiber options that are newer and haven't been tested as much. There's cork, coconut husk. There's quite a range of kind of natural infields that have been tested. Does it play as well? I think we could get anything to probably play pretty well in the outfield. Does it require more replacement? Yes, because it breaks down actually. But any material like that will, right? And so what happens is it's a top dressing that happens. So a few times over the life of that say 8 years, you're going to be coming in and doing a top dressing. And so that does there's an initial cost increase for that material. And then there is an increase in cost based on the additive of that material over the life of the field. Are those products good or are they, I don't know if I should use the word good. Are those products alternatives that people have used? Yes. Are we comfortable using them? Yes. Do we have a lot of clients go that route? Very few based on the cost impacts is usually what creates an issue.
Yeah, a very, very popular mix in Northern California is our sand and our cork infill system. So we can most definitely present that. Now, from a baseball standpoint, I get a little concerned sometimes because of the ball. It doesn't settle as well, so that baseball hits the ground, you're going to get a little bit more of a splash piece. But again, there's give and take for each. But that would probably be my recommendation if we're going to go to an organic infill. We just did that at Oregon State University at their intramural rugby and soccer fields.
Just to follow up, but Jennifer, I'm assume you've looked at some of this. What, from the staff perspective, where how did you resolve this on behalf of staff?
On the specific infill material?
Yeah. Or perhaps we haven't really delved into it all that much. I'd just like to hear what you're thinking on behalf of the institution.
I'm somewhat new to this conversation. Zach Chair Mulholland has brought up a lot of questions that have made me start thinking about this, and I'm learning along with many of you about these issues. So
I think what probably drove it was we presented kind of the design that was placed at PK Park based on ball play and success there. And so, and knowing that there were cost constraints here, that may have been a negative on my part, not presenting that to Jennifer and Tom as, hey, there are these other options that you can go with, just knowing that there were already budget constraints to try to get this project moving forward.
Are there nearby fields that are using some of these alternatives that, if we wanted, if staff wanted to go take a look, if they're not too far to go visit?
Yeah, Rob just mentioned, so the intramural fields at OSU are probably the closest that have the cork material. And that are, those are the fields that are kind of right in the middle of campus, the kind of student rec fields that are there. That would probably be your best bet. I don't know of any fields in the Eugene Springfield area that have organic infill in them currently. It's still kind of an emerging technology in the last, 10 years with a number of things that didn't work quite right. And cork has definitely found its way as something that has been working pretty well.
My only issue with, and I like the cork. What we don't know about cork is that will break down. So the ability to recycle that infill, we just don't know yet. It hasn't gone through an entire replacement process yet.
We drink a lot of wine here in the Northwest.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, you bring your Pinot.
I'm happy to share some resources with Jennifer for other turf applications that have taken place. I can't speak to whether or not they're in Oregon, but in terms of baseball fields with organic fill that meet those performance requirements, happy to kind of connect the dots, and she can look into those opportunities.
If I could just ask, I'm now quite late. Is there any?
I'll write you a letter.
for
Yeah.
me?
I'm going to have some very quick questions at the end, but none of them for you. So unless anyone else has questions for Matt.
Nope.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy dinner.
Thanks, Matt. And
Yeah.
tell your family thank you.
I will try and be done in the next 5 minutes.
30 minutes overtime.
Okay.
Can I ask one question of Greg? I just think it's important to hear this context just out of all the information, all the things I've studied, and if that's okay. Is that
Yeah, go
okay
ahead.
with the group? So Greg, one thing that I was surprised to learn about with student experience in baseball is that the baseball team does take classes all online, which we support online classes, but we also support the option to have students in class and on campus. Could you give us just some context why that's set up that way, why it's important to bring those students on campus, and any context around the student experience here?
Sure. Well, we had our student athletes earlier speak about their experience and how they're able to interact with other student athletes throughout the campus, regular students throughout the campus. And that is an experience that our baseball players have not had the opportunity in more than 2 years because of the facility problem that we're dealing with right now. The fact that they have no set time to practice is why they are pretty much resulted to all online, except for circumstances where if somebody feels like I just can't be successful, then obviously the coaching staff will allow the student to participate in an in-person class. Fortunately, our student athletes, especially our baseball team, has done really well managing to progress, complete, and transfer all online. But just as far as their ability to interact with other people on this campus, it's really difficult just because of the sometimes, like we said, it's a Sunday at 8 a.m. and all of a sudden Sheldon, a baseball coach, calls and says, hey, I'm not going to use my hitting time today at 3. Do you guys want it? And boom, they run over there. Another thing that we're talking about, and this is going to open up a can of worms, is the liability that is being put on these student athletes to have to drive all over town is unbelievable that has not been even considered. Who signs up to come to college and then pay extra gas, drive all over town, do whatever they have to do just to participate in a sport that they felt originally that they were coming to a certain campus. I mean, we are putting these student athletes at unnecessary risk to ask them to be driving all over this community. And it's unfortunate that in the athletic world below Division I, that the only time things like that are considered when a tragedy happens. That is the only time that things happen, is when tragedy happens. Then change happens. Division I can afford it. The rest of us can't. I've been bringing this up for years and it's been ignored. So I apologize. I'm getting a little passionate about that, but that is just not, I mean, beyond the amount of things that's just, if I was a parent, I would be very, very nervous about the fact that the amount of hours that they're driving all over this community just to trying to find a place to warm up, play, and pursue something is just not fair. So I apologize for going off on a tangent there.
I have a couple very quick follow-ups, and then I will try and close this out in the next 3 minutes. So 6-PPD, it sounds like that cannot be removed from the rubber infill material, correct? That would have to be an alternative to try to avoid 6-PPD?
No, it's in the recycling process, the 6-PPD from all of our studies are not an issue.
So you
So-
specifically studied PPD?
What's that?
You specifically studied for PPD?
Yes.
Okay. Jeff, did you have a response?
I would just say maybe share the testing data with us. That would be great.
Okay. Next on PFAS. So I saw in your document here that the EPA would define the some of the materials in your product as PFAS. Do you want to speak to that? So under the EPA's definition of PFAS compounds, the
Oh, yeah,
forms
yeah. There's,
used
yeah,
would
I mean,
be
there's
considered
there's PFAS in there, but they're at a level that is not of concern.
Okay, thank you. From your perspective. Okay. And then on the injury, so the U.S. women's
Actually,
soccer
no,
team-
not from my perspective.
Okay.
From
Sorry.
the EPA's RCRA hazardous constituent list. So not my perspective. I'm not smart enough for that.
Thank you. Did you want to speak, Jeff?
I was just going to say, I'll share some information with you after about the limitations of those testing methodologies and what we're encouraging manufacturers to be doing today.
Thank you. With regards to sports injuries, so the U.S. women's soccer team, they want in their contract, they weren't going to have to play on artificial turf anymore because of their concerns over sports injury. The NFL Players Association, they're advocating for all natural grass because of their concerns around artificial turf. And they've shared some studies that suggest that artificial turf is more likely to injure players, which seems to be corroborated by the studies from the ICANN School of Medicine and Mount Sinai, as well as the Toxic Use Reduction Institute studies that they have linked to in that report. So I will just ask my colleagues, please take a look at that and recognize that there are different ideas around that and that there are many scientific reviewed studies that suggest that there is higher levels of sports injury from artificial turf. On greenhouse gas emissions, it says in your pamphlet here, your sales pamphlet, that you can calculate the greenhouse gas emissions associated with the production and the installation of this product. Can you provide that for us before the next meeting?
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. Yeah, it looked like the graphs in your document on page 24 show that an artificial turf field has about 4 times the greenhouse gas emissions over the lifetime of that product. So if you are interested in looking at the greenhouse gas emissions, there is that, shows about 4 times the rate for an artificial turf field. And I look forward to the specific numbers around this field when you can provide that. And last, on cost, I shared around a Toxic Use Research Institute study that showed that there's actually a lower lifetime cost for using natural grass. It has a much, much lower upfront cost. And then, you're basically paying someone to take care of the field instead of paying for the additional cost of artificial grass. It looks like on page 28, you show the potential cost of a natural grass field is going from $75,000 to $500,000, and the initial capital cost of an artificial turf field at $1.125 million. Is that accurate to assume that an artificial turf field has a higher upfront cost of $500,000 to $1 million?
Well, one, I think that's going to be site specific. And when it comes to type of grass, irrigation system, drainage system, how well do you want that drainage system? How well do you want that sand base? These are all basically 20-year cost summaries that we try to do that on in general. But I'm sure that, again, I'm not a natural grass expert when it comes to this specific site. So, I mean, I couldn't speak to it 100%. It's going to be also what kind of dirt do you want? What kind of clay do you want? What kind of surface do you want? What's the grass piece going to be? Is there anything nearby that is going to affect the horizontal growth from top down? Poana seeds blowing in the air. I mean, again, there's a lot of variables that go into that.
Okay. And then
Jennifer
just
had something she wanted to add to that. Jennifer, did you want to add something? I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I think Rob did a fine job of answering it, but I just wanted to say that I feel like that's a more appropriate question for Matt. Unfortunately, I know Field Turf probably put out some data about the differences in costs, but we really should be asking our landscape architect who has experience with both so we can follow up with that.
I've asked for that number twice, so it'd be great if we could get that number. I'd really appreciate it. And then one person suggested maybe we wouldn't need to irrigate if we had an artificial turf field, but I heard from someone else, it's often that you will water an artificial turf field to keep it cool in the summer. Would we still need to have an irrigation system if we had an artificial turf field in order to keep it cool during those times of the year?
No.
Okay, thank you for your time. Anybody else? With that, thank you very much for everyone that came tonight. I very much appreciate your time and your expertise, and I think everybody learned a lot. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next up is board policies. President Bulger, would you please introduce this item?
Yes, we are bringing some board policies for the board to review. And then after that, Brett, if you would not mind, just go into the next item, which is ethics training.
All right, good evening. Chair Mulholland, members of the board, President Bulger, thank you for having me this evening. I bring before you tonight 7 board policies for your review. The first 4 are up for a regular 5-year review and their fiscal policies with some very minor revisions suggested. And the last 3 are policies that need to be updated because of recent changes in Title IX regulations with the federal government. So all of the changes proposed in the Title IX, in the 3 policies for Title IX are from OCCA and the legal updates that we get through the policy library that we subscribe to. So those have been legally vetted and are suggested revisions for your consideration. I will leave it up to you how you would like to handle these. If there are particular policies you would like to dive into, I do want to apologize. There's one typo, and that is on the last page. It says suggested revisions for board policy 3530. It should say 3540. But as far as I can tell, that's the only typo in here.
Lisa.
So I have questions about the numbering of the policies. Did we merge the previously numbered LCC board policies with the OCCA numbered policies? Do we still have 2 numbering systems? Do we have 1 numbering system now? Where are we at? So as we review these policies, how do I know which one I'm looking at?
So thanks for asking that question. The 3-digit policies are the original LCC policies. The 4-digit policies are from the OCCA library. I didn't feel that it was necessary to put LCC or OCCA in front of them. They're board policies. So until we go through the process of renumbering the original LCC policies, that'll be the difference. But the goal is hopefully when we have our next legal counsel to move in the direction of moving the 3-digit policies into kind of where they fit in the OCCA library with a 4-digit number.
Because as far as I recall, we have gone through all the OCCA policies. Do we have any that are still sitting with shared governance?
There was a memo presented 2 weeks ago in the board packet that did outline the policies that are in the shared governance system. And I'm
Okay, I'll
sorry, I
take a
just
look at
can't
that.
recall them all off memory.
I have one final quick question. Where did the revisions come from in the first 4?
The revisions for the first 4, the way that we're kind of proceeding with the regular 5-year review process is Vice President Fawcett or Kara and her staff have gone through all of the each of the financial policies, those that are in the packet tonight and the previous 2 batches that we've brought before you, and her team looks at them, and if there's a need to suggest a revision, that's where those have come from. So her team has suggested that, and she's able to answer any specific questions you might have.
And do we have a red line?
You do in your packet, yes. And there's also included anytime there's a suggested revision, there's an explanation as to why we're making that suggestion.
Julie.
I read through them. They look great. They seem to make sense. The cleanup language, in compliance language. I don't need to review them again this evening for that, but I appreciate the opportunity to ask you questions if I need to.
Thank you.
Okay. Steve.
Yes, similarly, I've read through it. Very clear. The revisions seem pretty straightforward, minor. I don't have any reason to not support them when they come up for a vote presumably at the next meeting.
Okay, Lisa.
Process question, are we still using the same process where we review and make suggestions during the, or maybe, I don't know if this should be directed to Dr. Bulger, but we review and make suggestions for changes in the work session, and if there are no changes or requests, and we are just moving them to the consent agenda? Are we still using the same process?
We are. We're using the same process. Thanks for
Okay,
asking.
great. Thank you.
Yeah, and just to give you a little warning in advance, if you do forward these to the next regular meeting agenda, you will have 2 months of policies. So the consent agenda will look very full with board policies, but that's because you had one meeting where policies were pushed forward to the next meeting.
Yep, absolutely.
Great.
But do note for newer board members, you can always pull something off if there's additional questions, additional comments, and heck, even edits. So yeah.
Yeah, so if anybody catches any red flags in the next 2 weeks, then we'll pull that from the consent calendar and have some additional discussion time.
Yep.
But not seeing that, we will move on. Unless we want to do this at the next meeting.
That's extreme.
Right, let's move into. All right, I think I can do all of these at the same time. I'm filling in this evening. This is a presentation that our legal counsel has historically given the board, so I will do my best. I've watched a ton of Night Court and LA Law and Law and Order, so I'll do my best. Yeah, doom. Well, if my computer works. All right. So this evening, we are going to briefly go over Board Policy 2715. That is your code of ethics as a board. And you have in policy a requirement that once a year you will have this presentation and sign an affirmation statement that you will abide by the code of ethics that you've set for yourselves. I will note that if you've read the policy, you are supposed to do this at your July organizational meeting. So that is a goal to get us back on that schedule next year, hopefully when we have a legal counsel giving this presentation. Your board policy 2715, it sets the ethical standards for you all as board members. And I mean, some of these things are nothing that I think would surprise you as an elected official. Ethical standards for board members, you're tasked with acting in the best interest of the community. You are respecting public input, meaning you'll listen to community members who come in, make sure that they have an opportunity to speak to the board, not just in person, but remotely if that's how they choose. You are tasked with identifying potential or actual conflicts of interest and stating those, maintaining confidentiality, and using appropriate channels for communications. And we've kind of gone over that in the past with how you should respond to emails and conversations between board members, between meetings, especially on topics that will come up for consideration. So please, if you haven't done it yet, please read through Board Policy 2715. It's included in the agenda item this month for your consideration. Also in that policy is the outline for if there's a violation of the Code of Ethics, how the board should proceed and handle that process. So you are all public officials, which means that you must follow Oregon government ethics laws. And ignorance is not a defense in Oregon. You can't claim that you did not know. And Sophie, you're kind of off the hook on this one, but they are good rules to live up to. But you can't claim that you didn't know what the laws were and get off the hook because of that. If you violate an ethics law in Oregon, you are guilty of violating an ethics law. So what I would strongly urge you, and Chair Mulholland did you provided a great example today. If you have questions about potential conflicts or anything that you consider could be an ethical question about your role as a public official, the Oregon Government Ethics Commission, did I get that right? Thanks. Okay. Is there to answer any questions that you may have. I have used it as an employee to call them to make sure, just on a real, we received an invite a few years ago to go over and see the track tournament at the U of O to get a sense of what would be expected for us over here in the operations that were going on. And I was a little uncomfortable just by the value of the tickets and what we were given to go over and see what was going on, whether that would violate the ethics laws. And so the commission worked with us to get us to a place to where we were in compliance with ethics laws while we were over there taking the tour. Key concepts for you to know, and there is a 4-page document that is included for all of you with bullet points. It's real, it's a quick read. I encourage you to look through this. But personal responsibility. So as I've already mentioned, you must all follow Oregon's ethics laws. If you have anything you're unsure about, seek an opinion. Financial gain. You are not allowed as public officials in Oregon to use your position for financial gain for yourself, for your family, or for your businesses. And lastly, honorarium and gifts. There are limitations on the value of gifts that you are allowed to receive from individuals or entities with an interest in the college. So for example, as my role in marketing, I have over the years been offered by vendors tickets to go enjoy a day at Autzen Stadium or go to a show in Eugene. I have always turned those down. There's a reason they're saying, hey, Brett, would you like tickets to this game? And it's not because I'm a huge Ducks fan and a great person to go to a game with. They have an interest in getting us to choose them or keep them as a vendor. And so you will also possibly find yourself in situations where you will have to decide if there's a potential conflict. Lisa?
Doesn't that also, that $50 applies to you and your immediate family as well?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. And
So
then
like if somebody gave something to your spouse, it would apply
to your
to you.
spouse, to your children, to your immediate family members. Yes. Yep. And it does, there is a very long list of what is considered a gift in this 4-page document. So I don't feel like I need to read it to you, but please take a moment to just skim through that list. So conflict of interest. This came up this evening, and Chair Mulholland did exactly as you're supposed to do. Potential conflicts, that is a conflict where a public official, the recommendation that the board makes could affect the financial interest of the board member, their immediate relatives, or a business that they're associated with. An actual conflict is when it would. So it's a could versus would. The difference between, I guess I did put in some scenarios here. This is directly out of the Oregon Government Ethics Guide. And so some scenarios, a potential conflict of interest, LCC is looking to construct a new gym. And the board is in the stage of developing criteria for the bid process. A recently elected board member's son owns a construction company in town. That board member could have a potential conflict because the son could financially benefit if they put in a bid and win the project.
So how would that affect the board members voting on a board decision on that particular project?
When it's potential.
We're going to get to that in
Okay.
a couple slides.
Thanks.
So, but good question.
Again, potential versus actual.
Yeah, potential. So again, could financially impact with this one. Now, an actual conflict of interest. One of the qualified bids was submitted by the construction company owned by the board member's son. The board member would be met with an actual conflict of interest if the vote was to award the bid to the son's business, because in that instance, the son would benefit as a family member. So that would be a conflict. If the board member, if the firm placing a bid is owned by a neighbor and best friend of the board member, that is not a conflict of interest because that is not an immediate family member. So handling conflicts, potential versus actual conflicts. When there is a potential conflict, a board member must state it for the record before the vote takes place, they may still vote on whatever is under consideration. If there is an actual conflict, the board member must abstain from the vote. So that's really the issue, could versus would. Tonight was a potential conflict. So if there was an action vote taking place, Chair Mulholland could have voted. If it's an actual conflict, you would abstain.
And of course, they could participate in conversations too, with the potential.
Yes.
Unless there's with the actual, if there's a split vote, then the person with the actual conflict can break a split vote, was what I just read today. So I just wanted to add that for others, that they are aware that even if you have an actual, if there's a split vote, you are allowed to break a tie.
In your chair vote?
No, anyone, even if you have an actual, you're supposed to not participate in the conversation or vote.
So this is language I pulled
getting it.
directly out of the guide from the Ethics Commission. So I don't want to.
I just read it today.
I don't want to argue you on it,
I'm gonna
but
shut
I would check on that because I can't confirm it. Oregon Public Meeting Law. I mean, you are all tasked and required to function, to operate your meetings under public meeting laws. And in Oregon, Oregon tries to be one of the most transparent states in the country as far as public meetings, public records, and so forth. Public meetings in Oregon, you must have a quorum to do business. That's 4 members voting in the affirmative to actually take an action. The requirements for public notice are that you give adequate time. We define that as giving a minimum of 48 hours notice to the public when we provide public notice for a regular meeting, a work session, or a executive session. You are allowed to notice shorter than that. You can have special meetings and emergency meetings, special meetings with less than 48 hours notice or less than 24 hours notice. An emergency meeting can be even less than that. However, when you meet under, say, like an emergency meeting, you can only act on what the emergency is for. So if it's to deal with the budget, that's what you would meet in an emergency meeting for. You can't add other things like a vote on a smoking policy for campus or something like that. That would have to be done in a meeting with a regular notice. Last, I just put resources in here for you if you'd like to find more information. Like I said, the Ethics Commission folks are your friends. If you call them and they give you the wrong information, they will consider it kind of like the Secretary of State's office when you ask for their feedback on campaign literature and they give you a recommendation. It's not as much of a safe harbor with the Ethics Commission as it is with the Secretary of State's office, but when they give you guidance and you follow it, if you do anything that is found later to be a violation, you are going to be in a much better position than if you hadn't reached out to them and you violated the ethics laws. And so, I would just strongly encourage you, anytime you have questions, reach out to them. They are your friends. They're there to serve you.
I have Austin and then Steve.
Zach, you were right. It's on page 13 and 14 of the public official guide. So, yeah.
All right. Well,
that's all I have.
That was not on night court. I'm sorry. Did my best.
Steve, did you have a question?
I was actually looking for feedback from you. So you called them today. It sounds
Yeah.
like I've never had to do that. I'm
Yeah,
just
they have a
curious.
helpline.
They answer to somebody like
Yep,
a real person
they-
answers
they
the phone and you get immediate response. or-
Forwarded me to another line
Yeah.
and we talked for about 15 minutes and he
That's great.
said, you look fine, but go ahead and declare the potential. And that was it.
I've also had to call them, and they are by far some of the friendliest public agency people I've ever encountered. And I've had to call a couple of times, and you always get a person. And if they don't know, they connect you to somebody right away. They're really, really helpful. They take it very seriously. And then if you're on a board that has to file an annual report about any gifts you may have received, they are so responsive to helping you file.
Yeah. They're a staff of 7 people, so not everyone call at once, but yeah.
And something to keep in mind, if you find yourself in a position where there's a potential or an actual conflict of interest, again, it falls on you as board members to put that out on the record. And if it's found that you did not identify that you had a potential or actual conflict and the board took action, that the action would not be overturned, but there could be penalties brought on you as board members for taking that action and not declaring what your potential or actual conflict was. And so again, there's the potential for the ethics folks coming after you if you don't play by the rules. So take advantage of these nice people in Salem. If you ever have any questions, I mean, hopefully we'll have a legal counsel here that you can lean in on, but Salem, they are great at what they do. And you're right. They answer your phone call. You get a real person. And if they can't help you right away, they find someone who can. That's been my experience as well. Please, when you have a moment, sign your affirmation statement. It's great that we have every board member here this evening. And when you're have those completed, please turn them into Celia and she will get you checked off the list.
22nd?
Yep. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
22nd for those who.
So we're about 20 minutes behind. We do have an executive session tonight, so I'm going to try and get through the remaining items as quickly as possible. With regards to the land recognition, at our meeting 2 weeks ago, the person that gave the land recognition added a statement that it was sort of the college's statement first, and then they added some additional context that they wanted to share around that. There was a question of whether in the future we should either not allow people to add their own additional statements or to make sure that they clarify that the first half was what the college recommends and the second half is what they added. And so I think what I'd like to do is just have Celia send out a quick survey, and if folks have a opinion on that, whatever the majority is, we'll go with that. Austin.
A little bit of history. 2 years ago, the Portland Indigenous Council, I believe, essentially stated to organizations that are doing land recognitions that if you're doing it, but it's a symbolic thing and you're not actually doing actions around it, then stop doing it. And also the Oregon State University School of Language, Culture, and Society student organization also stated that. And that's where that conversation started. And I actually read the land acknowledgement with the addition of those statements from those two organizations as a way to kind of like really get the board to really ask the questions of like, hey, what should we do with land acknowledgements? I then followed up with NASA, the Native American Student Association, and they gave great feedback on the land recognition. One of them was the use of the word destroy. I really loved what the students said in that my people are not destroyed. They are here. They live and their culture lives, and we are trying to save that culture and continue to grow that culture. And that was really beautiful words. And that was edited the word destroy out of our land recognition. If we are going to have a conversation about land recognition, it should be around how can we expand on it? How can we then take actions around it rather than it just being words? We should have a conversation. Should it be done in English or should it be done in Chinookawawa, which is the language that's actually taught here at this institution? These are the conversations I think that we should have with land acknowledgement and the expansion of it. And what are some actions that can be taken? I think the shared governance process is a great opportunity to take that and to give guidance for the board. So I think there's opportunities there.
Lisa.
I think this is a topic that has a long history of good intentions from the board that has been predominantly white and European heritage. I think we've received numerous feedback and requests to reevaluate over the last couple of years. And so rather than defer rather than defer an important conversation, which I think can have important impacts on some of the students and community here, I think it might be more appropriate to bring it back as a longer conversation, or to bring it back and discuss if we want to put it out there for students and faculty and staff in the community to provide the board with feedback, as Austin suggested. But we have heard repeatedly that it's time to reevaluate. I think that would be beneficial.
Kevin.
I would add that the process, I'm not opposed to that, but I would add the process that we would ask the president to develop a plan that then we would consider. I didn't hear that in this conversation.
Heard. And I think it's mainly because we want to hear from, we want to hear from students. We want to hear from that community. The president has done outreach to that community as well. And I'm really curious if there was any feedback that she's gotten from that outreach. But I think that if we are to expand on what the land acknowledgement is, I think starting with students that are of Indigenous heritage is a good place to start. I think that's probably the main reason why that was mentioned.
And I would just say, I just usually assume that we would be directing the president to do that work.
Yeah.
That's my assumption.
Okay. So I think I'm hearing that this is actually worth a longer conversation, and that, I'm hearing what it would be of value is to try and follow up our words with some actions as well. So I think President Bulger and the Vice Chair and I can take that and have a discussion about how to bring back an agenda item to explore some of those issues and move forward.
Perfect.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Denise.
And I would be very interested to know that when the student organization gave the feedback of the language, in particular, they probably had some other elements of feedback, other recommendations and everything. If we could be aware of what that was, I don't know, could be a handout, or just let us know what in fact they said. What were their recommendations?
Absolutely. There was some public comment made by those students as well. So yeah, and I can, that could be pulled up. So.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. Next up is board member questions and comments. And I'm going to do one and then I'll go to yours.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. For those that watched at our last meeting, there was some confusion around quorum requirements. And just so everyone that is watching now, if you haven't watched then or watching it now, it does take a quorum of the full board to conduct business, which means it requires 4 members. Even if there are fewer than 7 members present, it still requires 4 members for a full vote. And with that, Lisa.
Great, thank you. So next one's a little personal. I, after a lot of thought and consideration, I have decided that I will be stepping down from the board sooner than I had hoped. My plan had been to continue to serve until May, but in the last month, the reality of the transition that I've been making has really begun to dawn on me. I am also working full-time in addition to everything else, but so I am going to be stepping down. This has been a hard decision. The college is such an incredible asset to our community. I've been really privileged to see the way that this community impacts lives, particularly of some of our most historically marginalized communities. And I'm really inspired by the employees, all the employees here that bring so much heart and hard work to making a difference in the lives of students and in our community. So I've been honored to serve and I will really miss serving. But please know that I'm going to the state legislature fully with the intent of fighting for community colleges and fighting for higher ed and continuing to support the work that everyone is doing here. This will not be my last board meeting. My last board meeting will be the first board meeting in November, which will allow, and I have discussed this with Dr. Bulger and with the chair, so that'll allow us to put into place, similar process that we used to appoint Julie. I would like to request whoever is appointed in this process is going to have to run in May. Right. They're going to have to run in May. And so, I would like to request that when we post it, that we please put that in the post, so that people know when they're applying that they will have to run in May. I know you don't have to select somebody who's not going to run, but I think it would be helpful to appoint somebody that is going to run. And so, yeah. I just wanted to share that with everybody. So
I'm going to be just the first to say thank you for your service. And it's just been a pleasure serving with you on the board and learning from you. And Kevin.
Yeah, dang, Lisa. I've wondered how you've done it working full time on ramping to the legislature. I've really appreciated working with you. You were so gracious to me when I came on, even before, you were kind and mentoring. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Austin.
I've stayed before in past board meetings. My mom watches our board meetings, and I am the third favorite board member on this board. Lisa, you are definitely my mom's favorite, and now you're going to be her favorite state representative, and I mean. So many things you've done for our institution, chairing this board during the pandemic, leading a campaign for the bond measure during that time period. That's where you and I got to know each other more during that time period. And you inspired me to join the Bond Oversight Committee and then eventually run for the board. You, as vice chair, while you were going through cancer treatment and the things that you continue to work hard and you continue to go through those long meetings and be a part of this community college. Through all of that, it was absolutely extraordinary. Your guidance, your leadership, your history, the fact that you have the teaching background that you have, you really brought to these board meetings a focus on students and a focus on education. And when I endorsed you, when you first announced you running, we need more teachers in Salem. And as sad as I am to see you go, and I'm so glad to hear that I can enjoy your company for one more meeting here. Salem is a lot better off because we have a teacher that's going to be a state representative up there.
Thanks, Austin.
Sophie.
I know that I haven't been able to meet with you very often in these meetings, but I just want to say thank you because I love sitting by you just because I can ask you all the stupid questions and you whisper me the answers to them. You're just so helpful and you have a kind presence, and that's going to be really sad to lose.
Thanks. And, with my educator hat on, there are no stupid questions.
Steve.
Steve also just wanted to chime in. We haven't always seen eye to eye. You know that. I know that. And I respect the work that you've done on the board. And I'm glad to see that you're going to continue serving in Oregon.
Great. Thank you.
Lisa. So I came on board when we're right here. The three of us came on board and living in Florence and being the only other till recently female member of the board, I was just like, help. And that's what you do. You mentor, you guide, you share so many resources, so much availability, so much patience, all wrapped in kindness. So thank you very, very much. I think we all benefit from your expertise and presence and knowledge of the history of so many issues that have come up in front of the board. I'm a person who does like to know a little bit of the background history when we're discussing a particular issue. And that has been a wonderful contribution. And I thank you very much on behalf of all of us. Thank you.
Well, you will get me for one more meeting. And hope I don't have to endure this again. But I did want to point out that, based on what Austin said about not missing a single meeting while I was going through 2 different rounds of chemotherapy. The only board meeting that I ever missed while serving on this board was the last board meeting due to the inability to access Wi-Fi. Like even zoomed in from Croatia for a board meeting. So I have taken it very seriously, but you will get me for one more. So thank you all very much. And it has really been an honor to serve. So.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, the last item on our agenda is future meeting dates. We heard from the majority of the board that more people wanted to meet on the Wednesday evening in January for our board retreat instead of the Saturday. And so we will plan accordingly. And with that, we have an executive session starting in, we'll take a 5-minute break and we are adjourned.